I haven't redesigned my personal website in over a decade, and in that time, a lot has changed. My work has evolved, my interests have expanded, and the way people discover creative professionals has changed too. But my site was still representing an older version of me. Hello, I'm Matthew Encina. In this video, I'm rebuilding my professional website in Framer, the sponsor of this project. And before I can design the site, I need to clarify the story behind it. What should my site say about who I am today? How do I show the range of my work without it feeling scattered? And how do I build something flexible enough to grow with me in the next chapter? For a long time, my old website worked well enough. It had my work, my links, and gave people a place to find me. But after more than a decade without a real redesign, it started to feel dated and misaligned. When I originally made the site, I was a creative director in advertising. Since then, I've worked across branding, motion design, industrial design, filmmaking, content, and education. And today, I can see that all of those chapters are connected somehow, but I haven't found the clearest way to explain it yet. Which brings me to my first challenge. How do I show the range of my work with focus so it doesn't feel like a collection of unrelated things, but the result of a career that's been building towards something? The next challenge is more personal. The site isn't just a design project, it's a reflection of who I am now. What parts of my past do I keep? What do I want people to understand about me now? And what am I making room for next? And underneath all of that, there's this pressure to keep up. New tools, new platforms, new expectations. The question becomes, how do I make something that feels current without losing myself in what everyone else is doing? I'm excited by the possibilities, but I don't want to just chase what's new. I need to understand what the site is really here to do so the next version feels intentional, not just updated. Before I begin, I need to define the goals of the site. These days, a lot of people first find me through social media or this channel. But if they want to understand the bigger picture, what I do, where I've been, and how we might work together, they need somewhere to go. That's the purpose of this site, to be a central hub for my story, my work, and the different ways people can connect with me. The new site needs a homepage that quickly gives people a sense of who I am and what I do, a content management system, or CMS, to organize case studies and make the work easier to update over time, an about page with detailed bio and a career timeline so people can understand the path that led here, a speaking page for talks, workshops, and opportunities, and a resources page to collect links, tools, and things I want to share. The last time I built my site, a template made sense. It helped me get online quickly, and at the time, that's what I needed. But this version needs more freedom than a template can give me. I don't want to just place my work into a layout. I want to shape the story, the interactions, and the feeling of the site myself. That's what brings me to Framer, a tool that lets me build more freely and express my creativity in a way my previous site couldn't. Now that I know what the site needs to do, it's time to start translating that direction into something real. I already had a sense of what I wanted the site to feel like. Polished but not boring, expressive but clear, personal without feeling unprofessional. But that direction was still abstract. So before designing anything from scratch, I started collecting references. I pulled together examples of typography, color, motion, layout, texture, and interaction. Not to copy any one reference directly, but to start noticing patterns. What feeling kept showing up? What details felt connected? And what started to feel like me? Those mood boards became the raw material for my stylescape, a way to curate the inspiration into a more cohesive visual direction. What I land on is something I'm calling chroma collage, driven by a few phrases that feel true to me: curious creative, meticulous maker, design journal. There's a foundation of classic Swiss design in the typography and structure, but I'm pairing that with warm colors, collage-like details, and tactile elements so it feels designed but still made by hand. With that direction in place, I'm ready to start giving the website shape. Over the next few weeks, I work on iterations of the website. My goal is to translate the feeling of the stylescape onto the site. The typography, colors, image styling, and motion in a way that feels natural in a web experience. The first version gives me something to react to. It has the pieces, but it doesn't quite have the presence yet. So the next pass, I focus on just the typography, weight, size, and contrast. I like to use type as a visual element by making huge letters to break up space and small type for texture and rhythm. I've always believed that if you nail the type and layout, you've already solved most of the visual work. As the site expands beyond the homepage, the challenge becomes more than keeping the design consistent. Each section needs to help explain a different part of the story. The homepage gives people the big picture, the portfolio shows the range of work, and the about page connects the chapters behind it. I move on to building the portfolio side of the website. The homepage is a one-off custom page, but the portfolio needs to work differently. For that, I'm using a content management system, or CMS for short. It lets me design one formatted project page and then use the same structure for a range of different work. Each project can have different images, writing, and details, but they all live inside the same reusable format. So I create a few sample projects, define the fields each page needs, and design the template around real content. Then I test a few different ways to browse the collection of work. This is the less glamorous part of building a site, but it's what makes the portfolio easier to grow over time. With the bigger parts of my website in a good place, I move on to the secondary pages. The About page gives me a place to elaborate on my personal story. I also include a career timeline to show how different chapters connect. But instead of treating it like a resume, I use each chapter to show how those experiences shaped me and how one thing led to the next. The speaking page is where I could share past talks, workshops, and examples of how I connect with communities in real life. It gives event organizers a clearer sense of whether I'm a good fit for their event. Lastly, the resources page gives me a flexible place to share links, tools, and references, and things that don't really fit neatly on the rest of my site. As I'm designing the site, I'm also writing it, and that's one of the harder parts. Because I'm not just writing copy, I'm trying to give shape to my story. The images, layout, motion, and words all have to work together. So I kept going back and forth between what was seen and what was said. Sometimes the visual could carry the idea, and other times the writing needed to be more direct, aiming for clarity and impact without excess. As a designer, choosing the right words matters just as much as choosing the right images, and a lot of the work is in the edit. Once the main structure of the site was working, I started looking for ways to make it feel more personal and handmade, because the details are what make it feel like me. So I started adding small personal touches, handwritten animated graphics, photographs of objects I've created, Polaroids from past memories, and even sound recorded from keyboards I've designed. A reminder that behind the work, there's still a person making things. By this point, the site has grown beyond the homepage. It has a CMS, secondary pages, styles, colors, breakpoints, and a lot of small decisions that need to stay consistent. And in the middle of this process, Framer launches agents built directly into the design canvas. By now, I've already spent weeks shaping the site by hand, defining the visual direction, and building out the structure myself. So instead of using agents to decide what the site should be, I use them to refine what's already there. I use agents to find header images that are close but inconsistent, to organize and name the colors I've been choosing along the way, and to help with first passes on responsive breakpoints so the site holds up better across desktop, tablet, and mobile. At this stage, agents feel less like a shortcut and more like support, a way to clean up the file, bring the design system into better alignment, and keep the site moving in the direction I already set. A few weeks pass and life pulls me away from the project longer than expected. But when I finally come back to it, I can see it more clearly. And that's when the doubt starts to creep in. I've been looking at so many incredible sites lately that mine starts to feel smaller by comparison. This is where it's easy to stall. From my experience, there are a few paths forward. 1. Quit and bury the project. 2. Publish it, knowing it's as good as it's gonna get at this moment. Or 3. Take more time and make it better. So I try to look at the work honestly, without letting the doubt take over. what's actually working, what still feels unresolved, and what can I improve with the time I have left. Looking at the site again, I'm reminded of the goal. Not the flashiest website, but something that feels true to me. It's easy to compare your work to everything else out there, but that shouldn't take anything away from what you're creating. I can see that with one more pass of refinements, this will be ready to share. "10 years ago, my site reflected a very specific chapter of my career: creative direction, motion design, and commercial campaigns. That chapter is still a part of my story, but I needed to make room for more than that. And this is where the new website starts to bring the whole picture into focus. The homepage gives a clearer sense of who I am now: a designer at my core, a maker of physical objects, and a storyteller across mediums. I also wanted the site to feel playful, with small details that make it feel handmade. You can drag around some of the objects I created, and this keyboard plays real typing sounds I recorded. I added a section of highlights to show the range of my experience, and wrap the homepage with what I do today. The portfolio shows the depth of my work, from past branding projects to commercial work to the products I design now. The About page gives the work context, showing how one chapter led to the next. Together, these pages help the site feel less like separate pieces and more like one connected story. They start to show what I couldn't fully articulate at the beginning: that these weren't separate paths, they were different expressions of the same instincts: design, story, and craft. Redesigning the site reminded me that building something personal is never just about the pages. It becomes a snapshot of who you are at that moment. But that snapshot isn't fixed. My identity keeps evolving, my story keeps going, and now I have a site that can grow with me. For now, it finally feels like a better reflection of where I am and where I'm heading. If you want to build your own professional site on Framer, use the link provided in the description below. If you have any questions about the process or how I approach the site, leave them in the comments and I'll do my best to answer. With that out of the way, it's time to get back to work.